The mess hall froze when the blonde woman walked in. 3 weeks later, they'd finally learn her name. Sarah Chen slid into the corner table, back to the wall, eyes quietly mapping every exit. 4 SEAL recruits exchanged smirks, thinking they'd found an easy mark. They saw a small, ordinary contractor, never realizing they'd just awakened something lethal. In a room full of men trained to kill, underestimating her could be the last mistake they ever made. Sarah turned a page, fingers subtly spreading, measuring distance. A chair scraped. Their approach had begun. The Naval Special Warfare Training Facility at Coronado Base hummed with barely contained aggression during evening chow. 200 of America's most elite warriors filled the mess hall, their loud voices competing for dominance in the pecking order that defined their world. Sarah Chen sat alone, methodically consuming her meal without once looking down at her plate. Her contractor badge marked her as an outsider, a necessary evil in their warrior ecosystem. The whispers started immediately. Why would a civilian analyst need access to their facility? Her 5'6" frame and blonde ponytail suggested someone who belonged in an air-conditioned office, not among operators who killed for a living. But trained eyes would notice the details others missed, the way she held her fork like a weapon, the faded scars across her knuckles that spoke of close-quarter combat, the wedding ring engraved with a Navy anchor, worn smooth from constant touching. Master Chief Rodriguez observed from his command table, something nagging at his tactical mind. Her breathing pattern matched combat veterans under stress, controlled, measured, ready. The classified materials spread before her weren't standard contractor reading, and that subtle shift in her posture when Morrison's squad began their approach? Pure muscle memory from someone who'd survived ambushes. Morrison's reputation preceded him. Wealthy military dynasty, desperate to prove he'd earned his place through merit rather than connections. His 3 teammates formed up behind him in textbook intimidation formation. They'd done this dance before with female personnel who dared enter their domain. Sarah's fingers shifted imperceptibly on the table, index and middle spreading slightly, a sniper's tell for measuring distance. The entire hall sensed the approaching confrontation, conversations dying as 200 pairs of eyes turned to watch. Morrison cracked his knuckles as he stood. Time to remind this civilian where she belonged. Morrison's shadow fell across Sarah's manual as his squad surrounded her table, blocking every escape route with practiced precision. "Hey, sweetheart. Think you're in the wrong cafeteria," he drawled, his Connecticut prep school accent bleeding through the forced military roughness. Sarah's eyes never left the page, her breathing unchanged despite 4 elite warriors looming over her. "Maybe you need help finding the secretarial pool?" The squad chuckled, feeding off their leader's energy. Morrison snatched the manual from her hands, flipping through pages marked with classification stamps. "This is classified material, lady, way above your pay grade." Sarah's voice emerged calm as still water. "Please return my property." The reasonableness of her tone only fueled Morrison's need to establish dominance. "Or what? You'll file a complaint with HR?" He tore a page deliberately, letting it flutter to the floor. Oops, accident. The mess hall had gone cemetery quiet, 200 warriors watching this David and Goliath scenario unfold. Sarah still hadn't looked up from the remaining pages before her. "I asked politely once," she said, each word precise as a surgical cut. Morrison leaned closer, his coffee breath washing over her. "And I'm telling you to leave. This is a warrior's space, not a book club." Other SEALs began shifting uncomfortably. Something felt wrong about this woman's stillness. Master Chief Rodriguez half rose from his seat, recognizing predator patience when he saw it. Morrison noticed the calluses on her hands didn't match any desk job he'd ever seen. The Special Projects Division marking on her contractor ID suddenly seemed less administrative, more ominous. But pride had already committed him to this path. "You know what I think?" Morrison announced loudly, playing to his audience. "I think someone's playing dress-up, pretending to be important." He grabbed her coffee cup and poured it across her manual, brown liquid spreading across classified pages. "Clean that up, contractor." Sarah finally looked up. Ice-blue eyes met his, carrying the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen death up close and personal. For one heartbeat, Morrison's lizard brain screamed danger. Then she stood slowly, each movement economical as a loaded weapon. "You have 30 seconds to apologize," she said conversationally. Morrison had no idea he was staring into the eyes of someone who'd killed 13 men with her bare hands. Morrison's laughter echoed off the mess hall walls. "Or what, office girl? Gonna report me to your supervisor?" Sarah stepped forward, closing the distance with mathematical precision, far enough to avoid seeming aggressive, close enough to strike if needed. 25 seconds, she said, checking her watch with the casual air of someone timing a coffee break. The room's temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Before Morrison could respond, the base alarm blared through overhead speakers. All personnel were to report immediately to the obstacle course for an unscheduled training evaluation. Morrison's smirk widened. "Saved by the bell, sweetheart. Better run back to your desk before someone gets hurt." Sarah gathered her ruined manual calmly. "I'll be participating today." The course instructor, a weathered chief petty officer, shook his head. "Ma'am, contractors aren't authorized." She produced a second identification badge from her pocket, solid black with no photo, just a serial number. The instructor's face went pale. Master Chief Rodriguez approached, his voice carrying decades of authority. "Ma'am, this isn't a civilian confidence course. This is SEAL-level training. People have died attempting it." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I'm aware of the requirements, Master Chief." Morrison couldn't resist the opportunity. "Let her try. Should be entertaining. Maybe she'll learn where she belongs." Rodriguez hesitated, something in Sarah's eyes making him nod slowly. The first obstacle loomed 40 feet high, a rope climb in full combat gear. Sarah ascended like smoke rising, her technique flawless, finishing 3 seconds faster than the standing course record. 200 jaws dropped in unison. The second challenge involved live fire room clearance. Sarah moved through the kill house with liquid grace. Double taps to every target, zero hesitation in her trigger pull. Instructors exchanged worried glances. This wasn't contractor training. By the third obstacle, hand-to-hand combat, whispers rippled through the crowd. Sarah requested full contact against 3 opponents simultaneously. The instructors tried to protest, but she'd already entered the ring. 90 seconds later, 3 unconscious SEALs were being carried to medical. Her movements had been surgical, targeting nerve clusters and pressure points with inhuman precision. Morrison's smirk had long since faded, replaced by something approaching fear. The final test pushed beyond physical into psychological, resistance to enhanced interrogation. Sarah volunteered before anyone could stop her. They waterboarded her. They applied electrical stimulation. She endured it all with the stone-faced determination of someone who'd survived worse. When they finally released her, she provided a string of false intelligence that led nowhere. Textbook SEER school responses, but elevated to art form. Morrison tried salvaging his dignity. Lucky day for the contractor. Sarah approached him, still dripping from the waterboarding, her eyes never leaving his. "Your apology. I'm still waiting." His squad had already backed away, recognizing an apex predator when they saw one. "I don't apologize to..." The movement happened faster than thought. Morrison found himself on the ground, arm hyperextended, her knee pressing against his carotid artery with exactly enough pressure to demonstrate control. Master Chief Rodriguez frantically checked the classified personnel database on his tablet. The search result made his blood freeze. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, SEAL Team 6, killed in action, Afghanistan, 2019. Yet here she was, very much alive, very much dangerous. The mess hall erupted in whispers as Sarah released Morrison and stood slowly. She removed her contractor badge, revealing the worn Navy SEAL trident beneath. "Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen," she said quietly, "officially killed in action, unofficially, reassigned. But if she was supposed to be dead, what was she really doing here? Have you ever misjudged someone based on their appearance? What happened when you realized your mistake?" Master Chief Rodriguez called an emergency briefing in the secure conference room, his hands trembling as he pulled up classified files. Sarah's real story unfolded like a nightmare. Operation Blackwater, a deep-cover mission in Afghanistan that went catastrophically wrong. Her entire team, including her husband David Chen, had been betrayed by someone within the command structure. The ambush had been surgical, the torture methodical. Everyone was listed as killed in action. Everyone except Sarah, who'd spent 2 years in an enemy prison before escaping through methods that remained redacted even in top-secret reports. 3 weeks ago, naval intelligence had finally identified the traitor, Admiral Marcus Webb, scheduled to visit Coronado Base tomorrow for a defense contractor meeting. Webb had sold out Sarah's team for $50 million in illegal arms deals. The revelation hit Morrison like a physical blow. "My uncle said you were dangerous, unstable," he stammered. "Said you went rogue after David died, couldn't be trusted." Sarah's expression never changed, but Rodriguez saw her fingers trace the wedding ring unconsciously. Webb knew she was coming. The mess hall confrontation hadn't been random. It was a test to see if she'd maintain cover. Morrison had been unknowingly playing his uncle's game. The stakes escalated rapidly. Webb had arrived 12 hours early, changing security protocols and surrounding himself with private contractors. Sarah's extraction team reported compromised positions. Local military police started questioning her credentials, her cover identity unraveling thread by thread. She had 24 hours to gather evidence from Webb's personal quarters or disappear forever into the shadow world that had become her home. The base's underground network activated without official orders. SEALs who'd smelled corruption in the ranks for years offered support. Even Morrison volunteered to help, his family loyalty shattered by the realization of his uncle's treason. "Some of us knew something was rotten," Rodriguez admitted. "Too many good operators lost on routine missions. We've got your 6, Commander." Sarah spent the night in the armory, methodically cleaning weapons she might never use. The mission required evidence, not vengeance, though the line blurred with each photo of David she touched. His voice echoed in her memory. "Complete the mission, no matter the cost." Tomorrow night's Admiral reception would provide perfect cover. Hundreds of high-profile guests, overwhelming security, and Webb confident in his trap. But Sarah had survived 2 years of torture by focusing on this moment. She'd learned patience from pain, strategy from suffering. Webb expected the grief-stricken widow seeking revenge. He'd get the professional operative who'd already died once and had nothing left to lose. Morrison approached her in the armory, his arrogance replaced by shame. "What can I do to make this right?" Sarah loaded a magazine with practiced efficiency. "You want redemption? Help me put your uncle in prison." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed down the corridor. Base security or Webb's private army? Sarah chambered around, ready for either possibility. Tomorrow, she'd finish what David started. But Admiral Webb had one final surprise waiting, one that would force Sarah to choose between her mission and her life. What would you sacrifice to bring a traitor to justice? How far would you go for someone you loved? Admiral Webb's reception glittered with military brass and defense contractors, crystal glasses catching light from chandeliers that had witnessed decades of similar gatherings. Sarah moved through the crowd in catering whites, invisible as furniture, her tray balanced perfectly while she mapped guard positions. Webb stood at the podium, his voice carrying across the room as he spoke of sacrifice and fallen heroes. "We honor those who gave everything in Afghanistan," he intoned, "including the brave members of SEAL Team 7 who died ensuring our freedom." Sarah's jaw locked. He was talking about David, about her team, playing the grieving superior while their blood money sat in offshore accounts. She slipped through service corridors with practiced ease, reaching Webb's temporary quarters as his speech continued 3 floors below. The encrypted files were exactly where intelligence suggested, hidden in a false panel behind meaningless commendations. Financial records, communication logs, proof that Webb had sold her team's position for $50 million in weapons contracts. David and 11 others had walked into an execution disguised as a mission. Sarah uploaded everything to a dead man's switch. If she didn't check in within 60 minutes, every major news outlet and the Pentagon would receive copies simultaneously. Webb's voice drifted from the doorway. "I wondered when you'd show up, Sarah." He stood flanked by armed contractors, Morrison beside him with a Sig Sauer aimed at her center mass. "You always were too predictable, just like David. Your husband died because he trusted the wrong people," Webb continued, stepping into the room with practiced confidence. "You're about to make the same mistake." Sarah's hands remained steady on the laptop. "David died because you sold him out for money. 13 good operators murdered so you could retire rich." Webb shrugged. "Cost of doing business in our world. You understand that better than most." The evidence upload completed, Sarah closed the laptop slowly. "Already done. Dead man's switch activated. Your confession is 45 minutes from going global." Webb's smile never wavered. You think I survived 30 years in black ops without contingencies? My friends in the media will bury your story. You'll die a traitor, just like Morrison's weapon swung toward Webb. Actually, Uncle, she's not alone. The red recording light on Morrison's chest rig blinked steadily. He'd been wearing a wire since the armory, capturing every word of Webb's confession. The contractors shed their masks, revealing Rodriguez and 6 other SEALs who'd suspected Webb's corruption for years. Surprise, Morrison said quietly. Turns out I value honor over blood. Webb's arrest happened quickly, military police flooding the quarters while news outlets received the uploaded files. By dawn, congressional hearings were scheduled, Pentagon officials in damage control, and 13 names cleared of manufactured dishonor. Sarah stood in Webb's office as he was led away in handcuffs, David's posthumous Medal of Honor heavy in her hands. He would be proud, Commander, Rodriguez said softly. She touched her wedding ring once, then slipped the medal into her pocket. The sunrise painted Coronado Base in amber light as Sarah walked toward the main gate, duffel bag over shoulder, contractor clothes replaced with civilian attire. She looked like any other woman heading to work, unremarkable and forgettable. Her phone buzzed. Encrypted message. Untraceable origin. New mission available. Interested? Sarah paused at the gate, looking back at the base where she'd found justice but not peace. David was avenged, but Webb had been a small fish in an ocean of corruption. She typed back, "Send coordinates." 3 weeks later, a corrupt general in Syria would learn the same lesson Webb did. Never underestimate a woman who's already died once. What injustices in your life need someone willing to fight from the shadows? Share your thoughts on courage and justice below.